talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industries. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Dean Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
Rather like that intro. Thanks very much to Gary Bolter of Outcast Australia, one of our clan who I work with regularly. He's all the way down under. Now, talking to people down under, I've got a very fantastic special guest today. She is one of the best actresses of her generation, and I'm very excited to have her in the studio. But before I welcome in our special guest, I've got a co-host with me on this interview for the first time. Not first time on the channel, but first time doing an industry interview with me because he's a big fan of the film Wolf Creek. So how could I say no? Tus Penzo.
Hello.
The man who loves sitting in the dark. How's it going?
Pleasure being here. I like to keep my man cave like a casino with no windows. I can't tell what time it is at any given moment, you know.
Does it also have a buffet with food that might give you a dodgy tummy?
No, I try not to eat in here, you know. I don't want cockroaches and ants coming in this place.
I can see we've already got some interesting questions here, like how did they cut your fingers off in Wolf Creek?
Oh.
We'll definitely get to that. We'll definitely get to that. But without any further ado, guys, if you're here for the first time, don't forget to like and, more importantly, subscribe. This is Industry Interview. I think it's 43. I've got 3 this week. We have one with stunt coordinator and second action unit director Dan Stiles tomorrow. And I've got actor, producer and director Sean Cronin, who's got no less than 3 feature films out this year. Been a busy boy. He's coming in on Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Slightly earlier than my normal time, but that was the only time he was available. Anyway, drum roll, please, because I'm rolling out the red carpet now for the one and only Cassandra Magrath.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Lovely to have you. What time is it there?
It's 9 a.m. right on the dot.
Whoa.
Tuesday morning.
Time
is it there?
Have you had your coffee and a few dimmies?
I've had 1 coffee. Now I'm on to a green tea. No food as yet.
It's 4 p.m. here in Texas, and I'm also having my coffee right now because I kind of get up late. Stay up late, get up late, you know?
You're in Texas.
He's in Texas.
Texas,
an old Texan boy.
Australia.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Well, so Cassandra, I'm just going to get my viewers to know you a little bit. I'm going to ask you a few quick questions before we dive into your career. We'll do a little bit on the early days, and I know lots of people will be wanting to know things about Wolf Creek, so obviously we're obliged to talk about that, the most traumatizing event of your career, or certainly for me where your career is concerned. Okay, so here's a few quick questions for you. What's the first film you ever saw on the big screen in the cinema when you were young?
Shows how old I am. Bambi, the cartoon.
That's the first one I ever saw.
Really?
Yeah, and you're not as old as me. I know that because I know what year you were born. You were not as old as me. You must have seen that on a re-release, and it's been re-released many times.
Oh, and the mum died or whatever, and
and you cried.
The feelings were just too much.
The rest of the movie becomes a blur after that, right?
Yeah. I remember what I was wearing, and I remember that bit, and I remember going with my mum, and it was just really intense because, like,
it gets the remake of it gets a mention in the latest South Park episode. I'm not sure the remake will be as good. What's the last movie you saw on the big screen?
I saw the Marvel film by myself, the one with Cumberbatch or whatever his name is.
Benedict Cabbage Patch.
Yeah. I think I put a bitch in there. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Doctor Strange 2 or Doctor Strange 1? Doctor Strange.
Yeah, probably
2 of them.
Is there an actor or actress that you would most like to work with who's working today that you haven't worked with yet?
Kate Winslet would be the actress that I'd love to work with the most.
Interesting.
And I'd love to work with Michael Pitt as an actor.
Michael Pitt.
Yeah. Do you love Michael Pitt?
Yeah, he does a lot of like indie films.
Yeah.
Really good actor. Really good actor. What's a favorite film that you watch at least once a year?
I don't watch any film once a year. I do have favorite films.
A favorite
Some
film
of
that
them
you could put on any given afternoon. Oh yeah, I want to chill. I think I'll put on Shawshank Redemption. You know, that kind of movie.
Yeah. It's funny, I sort of don't have those movies. Like, strangely enough, one's come to mind, and I haven't seen it for years, but Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise.
That's
Like, I
a-
love, you know, I
that's an
just love,
unusual
there's so
film.
many.
That's
But I
a-
wouldn't
that's-
say, yeah.
What for you has been a benchmark television series in television drama? Something that you watched. It could be old, it could be
Breaking
recent.
Bad.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
For me, it
And
was our
6
friends
Feet
in the
Under.
north. Which one?
It's 6 Feet Under. Everyone
That's
should
a good
watch
one.
6 Feet Under. Yeah.
Six-
Breaking Bad.
6 feet under. Fantastic. Okay. So now you started acting pretty young. Your first acting gig was playing young Jane, I think, in Janus TV thing. Yeah.
Well, it was actually one before that. I played a young kid on a sci-fi television show called Ocean Girl. And then
I thought Janice was first. You did Zoe in Ocean Girl, 26 episodes.
it's the way they're sort of listed on IMDb, but the Janus role, I was still the same age. I sort of did him in the same year. And I was a flashback. There's a really good ABC series here, the Janus show. And one of the characters was in court remembering her sexual assault when she was young. And I was her as a young girl being sexually assaulted, which was
God,
kind
what a
of like,
first role.
I know. I don't even think they would like do it now, like, because it was really like explicit, like what I was doing. And there was a lot of people helping me, going, you know, making sure that the guy who was like, I don't know, I think he was like 50 or something, and I was like 11.
Right.
And that it was all like, you know,
Very well professionally handled.
It was, but as a young actress, like I felt so like such a serious young actress, like, you know, playing this like role. And I actually loved it. I've seen it. It's pretty intense.
Back then, I mean, that's a very intense scene for a first gig. Back then, you wouldn't have had such a thing as an intimacy coordinator, for example.
No, there wasn't. There was a couple of women I remember. There was a scene where I had that my like little singlet top was taken off. And they got rid of that. They said, we're not doing that anymore. You're not taking your top off. And I was going to do that. I was totally fine with that. But yeah, this poor guy, like I can't remember what his name is, but I used to see him around auditions and stuff like that. And I'd be like, hey, as a kid, like, you molested me, remember? I really hate running into that girl.
That's a great thing to shout across the room to a man
in a movie.
As a young girl, you know. Everybody looks up. What?
Nice.
Yeah. I'd love to find that show, actually. I should look for it. I don't know where it is.
So, I mean, how did it come about that you got the gig on Ocean Girl? Because that's a pretty big part. You're quite young, 26 eps. That must have paid for a few holidays or a big Barbie doll collection, whatever was your thing back then. How did that come about? How did the acting bug come about?
It all happened really quickly. So I decided I wanted to be an actor, jumping up and down on a trampoline, inspired by My Girl and also Elijah Wood. So Macaulay Culkin, Anna Chumsley, and Elijah Wood were my inspiration, and all the kids in Neverending Story. And I told my mum, and then that was, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And there was an audition locally to kind of be part of a child's agency, and adult agency was opening up to kids, so kids were encouraged to come and audition. And the drama school that I was attending invited some of the drama kids, and me and my brothers and sister went along, and we all got into the agency, and we all started working. So Ocean Girl was my first audition, and when I received the script, I was just so determined to get the job. I was like, you know, learned my lessons straight away. I was practicing. And
about how old were you around this time?
12, I was 11.
13?
I was in grade 6, year 6. So I'd been in my school every primary school performance and everything, you know. And yeah, I'd been the understudy the year before in a show, and, you know, it was just always wanting to be on stage. So I really, even as an 11-year-old, I was very determined to get that role. And I auditioned, and I ended up knowing someone who was in the casting room, and they said later, when we kind of became friends, I knew them for many years afterwards, that there was a conversation around me in that, saying that they thought it was a fluke because I'd never acted before, and it was my first audition. Well, all the kids haven't acted before, but they said, we'll get her back in, and if she can do it as good as she did it the other day, she can have the job. So I came back in and did it again, and then they were like, well, she can do it.
So
I
after
reckon I was terrible though, looking back. I reckon
would that show have been like filmed in the school holidays to accommodate the child cast, or was it full on straight away, forget going to school, you know?
That's the best thing about acting, is you get taken out of school and you don't have to go. And I was always looking for, I did oboe lessons just to get out of school, because I saw a girl leave class and I was like, what? So she's got a music lesson, and I'm like, well, book me in for a music lesson.
Is that a little dog?
Very much. So that was my favorite part, and you get to do it. Well, it's all in school hours. It's beyond school hours, so you work double. Like finishing at 3:30 in the afternoon for me seemed very early, because I was used to working until 6 o'clock at night, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Just depends. I was just asking if that
is there a tiny little dog in your lap?
Do you have a dog in your lap?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is my 13-year-old dog. She just.
I was just thinking she's doing
What's
like
her name?
Blofeld number from Bond. You know.
What's her name?
Her name is Chi-Chi, and she's a very old lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
13, and she just, she's just like a pillow.
I'm a big dog guy, so not so much cats, but I'm a big dog guy.
Oh, I'm a cat person, strangely, but I am.
Yeah. I had dogs. I had dogs for 10, 15 years, and now I got a cat, and it's so chill. But yeah, I like them both, man. I'm a Snow White, I like all the critters.
So, I mean, pretty much after Ocean Girl, you kind of became a gigging actress, really. You did Crash Zone, 26 episodes, Shock Jock, before you got into the more, I guess you'd call them adult dramas like Blue Heelers, which I've seen quite a few episodes of that. Were you doing bits of stage work in between? Like, was there plays or anything?
Yeah, I try and do a play every 5 years.
Right.
But I haven't done one for more than 5 years. The last play I did was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is an amazing play to do as an actor.
Yeah, that's always a meaty one. But what was the first big role that you did on stage?
On stage, I think it was a play called Bold Girls, I think, which is I had a Belfast accent, playing like an abused sort of street child. I did that play twice. I also did another play called Things Not to Do After a Breakup, which was a comedy with a bunch of friends of mine, which I think we had more fun doing that play than anyone did coming to see it. And then Things Not, and then Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I can't think of another play. I did stuff at school, but I'd love to do more theatre. I really would. And I'm writing a play at the moment, but I won't be in it. I'll be directing it. So I love theatre. I really do.
Will that be your first time directing a play?
My own play, yes. I did direct my solo performance recently in a friend of mine had an amazing one-man show.
Right.
I've directed like classes of drama that I've taken over the years and directed their like end of year performances that are part of the comedy festival here. But it would be like the first kind of big drama that I've directed on stage.
Well, that would be interesting.
So it's a big step for me. Yeah.
Do we know if that be on in Melbourne or Sydney, or where will that be?
It'll be in Melbourne where I am, so I can pull all my resources here.
Sure.
But I do have high hopes for my play. It's the lead characters are English, so I hope England puts it on. Yeah.
Well, come and talk to me about it. I've directed 16 plays, so
no, you haven't.
Of course I have. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're a machine. He was telling me yesterday, Stu Penzo, that he's written how fast he writes scripts. I've written one script over 5 years, it's still not finished.
He was showing me a list of all the books he'd done, and I was like, man, I've been working on one comic book for the past 5 years. All right.
Yeah. Well, everybody does creative things at their own pace. I mean, I've done acting too, but I haven't got a shred of the versatility and ability that you have. So, we can't all be good at absolutely everything.
I'm really lazy.
As much as we might try and push ourselves, it's always good to push yourself. So you mentioned briefly yesterday when we had a quick chat, and I said you were up for well, you did a small role in Band of Brothers Pacific.
Oh yeah.
I do want to talk about that because what's considered to be the third Band of Brothers series is just about to drop, Masters of the Air, which had a very tumultuous production. Got shut down during COVID, and it was one of the first ones to reopen over here. I mean, I'm a big history guy, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it. But I rewatched the Pacific 3 times actually in the last year and a half, and my favorite episode, I wrote about this on my blog on my website. My favorite episode of the Pacific is the Melbourne episode, the one that's got no action in it at all. And I love it because of all the character development and the little narrative with all the stories, and there's the relationships and there's women in that episode. And the whole episode just has a really different dynamic, but it shows that there's even a cost to taking a break from war before you go back. There's a different kind of cost, emotional cost. So you were saying that to get on that show, and you were up for a couple of different parts, you went through quite a rigorous audition process. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, and this often happens, you know, if you sort of read for a role and you end up getting another role. I kind of call them consolation prizes. Like, you didn't get this one, but you can do this. So that happens a lot. But it was because there was no women in that series, and this was communicated to me through my agent, and they were very, very, very fussy in particular about the type of women that were in that episode. Because there was just this whole series about men. And as you just pointed out beautifully, it's a pause in war, and they kind of go into society. And there was a lot going on, you know, between women and men during that time. And so the female parts were really kind of fussed over, and Tom Hanks was going to personally sign off on each every woman and make sure that they had all of that casting right. And so even though it is a small role that I have in the episode, it felt kind of like amazing and big to me because of that process, and because I had a nice, you know, nod from Tom Hanks. That felt nice. But also I just want to speak to the actual production, because I've never been on anything that had that was such a large production, and it blew me away. Those Americans are on another level. Like, they, first of all,
catering.
I want to talk about the catering.
Please do.
Oh my God. First of all, the filming of that goes 24/7. They have 2 crews, and they have a day crew that goes for 12 hours, and they have a night crew. Yeah. So they are producing film 24 hours. They have a military style, like the first AD role. Here too, we have there's always a tough role that's, you know, making sure everything happens on time. Because as you know, minutes cost X amount of money. So everything has to be, you know. But the American first AD that was on the Pacific was one of the most magnificent people. It was like watching poetry in motion, watching this guy. Phenomenal. The food truck, so they don't stop for breaks in food. Like, we have 15 minutes here and 45 minutes for lunch, and then you get 15 minutes in the afternoon. They don't stop to eat. In this, like, they have a food truck that's, you just go up to and you order whatever you want, whenever you want, because you're waiting for different times. Like, people can't all work at the same time on a film set. So you got to pick your time where you're not needed and go get something to eat. That was amazing. Let me just talk about the money for a second. Never seen anything like it in my life. The detail that they had. First of all, I had 3 wardrobe fittings for one outfit, and they were so particular. They wouldn't let us, the women or anyone, the extras, no one, wear underwear underneath our clothes, because the markings that it might make might be the wrong era. So if, like, women's kind of have these sort of like box cut underwear, and they didn't want that shown through the skirts because they weren't invented yet. That's the level that they were at. I knew a girl that had a role where she was just on a table and she was jugging, like she was sculling a beer or something like that. And she had the wrong blonde hair, the wrong color blonde hair. So they re-dyed her hair so it looked like she was a blonde that had never had her hair dyed before. I can't even tell, was genius. And you see her for like a few seconds, but the way they even dyed her hair, I went through wardrobe and makeup. I had a horrible, massive cold sore on my lip, and I get cold sore sometimes. And I was so stressed about being on this show because it was such a huge thing that I think it kind of, you cannot see it because they put me through makeup. I got a prosthetic top lip done in the morning. No, you don't even understand. They just had everything. The wardrobe, I think they had like an oval-sized place where they had the wardrobe. The cars that were out the front, everything was real from that era. You would open the drawers in the hub, and inside the drawer would be the right matches and it was just, the detail was insane. Never seen anything like it. No, it was just unbelievable. And all of the boys on that show were incredible. And it was just this huge thing that I was just so happy to be a part of, even though it was just such a small part. And but I just, it was incredible. Loved it. Oh, and I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
I got invited to all these dinners. They really included me in these readings, and then we went and had dinner. And I was lucky enough at one of them, it's all this bonding and all that sort of stuff that they do. And I was lucky enough to sit next to one of the historians for the show. So he was a war historian, and they constantly referencing him. And I chatted to him for about an hour and a half. I basically just spoke to him the whole night. And he was working closely with Tom Hanks and, Stephen, and about like the accuracy and stuff. And he was an expert. And I mean, I'm not really into war, but I was blown away by just listening to this guy. Like just what war is, how it happens, how countries respond, and the consequences. And oh my God, it was just like such an incredible experience being on this. Really up there for me.
Quite relevant in today's modern times, sadly.
Well, we here in America just had our Veterans Day 2 days ago, and I was on my buddy's channel talking about Starship Troopers, another good war movie. God, we love war, men. Just talking about it. Just kidding.
Well, what day was it? Sorry, Stupinzo. It was what day?
The 11/11 is Veterans Day here. So.
Oh, so that's September 11, of course.
No, not 11/11. September 11th is 9/11.
Obviously. No. So
11/11, November 11th. Yeah, just 2 days ago we had our Veterans Day.
Veterans Day.
Yeah. Which
celebrating the armed forces, like we have Armistice Day in the UK. Pretty much on the same date, I think.
Remembrance Day, or that's Memorial.
We have that
Day.
too. I should have remembered.
So, did you meet Dale Dye when you were on Pacific?
I am really bad with names. Potentially,
he's the military advisor who runs all the background guys, and he trains all the lead actors in things like having to use weapons and stuff like that. And he arranges the boot camp for all the actors to go on. Although one of the actors didn't go on the boot camp because he had a letter from his mum that got him excused. But that's a true story. And that actor got quite ribbed for ducking out on the training that everybody else did. I mean, he's still good in the show, but I wondered if you met him, because if you meet Dale Dye, you don't forget.
No, I wasn't near any of the.
Could you imagine?
Stuff. Yeah, I didn't see any of the combat.
But I think he was on set most days though, because he's a historical advisor as well. And I wondered if that might have been him that you sat next to in the dinner.
Potentially.
Quite a.
More about the writing, like to make sure that they got.
That would have been.
And he was telling me that they were so he loved working with Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg because they were so. It had to be perfect. Like
very meticulous guys.
It'd be so funny if that, they still train Cassandra to use weapons, even though she never uses a gun. They're that extensive.
We're that thorough, though. I wouldn't be surprised.
Michael Mann.
Who was directing the episode that you were in? Who directed it?
I don't remember.
It wasn't Hanks.
The first AD.
Wasn't Hanks or Spielberg though, was it?
No, I never met them. I never saw them.
Because Hanks only did, I think, one episode on Pacific, if I remember rightly, and Spielberg was like the producer, but I don't think he directed any of the episodes. Well, before we move on, thanks for talking about that, because I think that's just doing a small part of a show like that, I think, is a big feather in anyone's cap. Couple of quick super chats. Northern English Bastard, who is another YouTuber. Which moment in any horror movie still stays with you? since your first viewing. So he doesn't mean Wolf Creek. He means a horror film that you may have seen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What comes to mind straight away? Have you ever seen Changeling?
Yeah.
Yes.
When? Oh, do you know what I'm about to say? Do you know the moment?
I think so, but you're the guest, so you have the floor.
The killer in that kills children, which is just, doesn't get worse than that, does it? And he kind of like, I feel so awful about even saying this. He kind of grabs one of these little kids and you see it in a shadow. Oh my God, I'm going to vomit. And he just,
there's that big silhouette of the hand on the wall.
It's just one of those things that's straight out of a nightmare. Just every now and then something in film happens that really makes you just pulls the rug out from underneath you. And that moment really did it.
Well, before you do vomit, our friend Dark Hours saying, I love Australia. That's all I have to say. Now, I don't know if he's talking about the country or the film with Hugh Jackman. But I saw that at the cinema, by the way, that movie. One of the few people that did, but I did see it. I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was all right.
I also love Australia. As a Texan, it's like we have a kindred connection with Australia, but also all my Italian relatives live in Australia. There's a little thing in the 40s you might have heard of.
When you all went over there? So a couple of other things that you worked on, I want to touch on before we get to Wolf Creek. You did a film called Summer Coda, which I've been trying to find because it looked right up my street. Did you get to do any scenes with Jackie Weaver on that?
No, which is such a shame.
Yeah, because she's I mean, I've met her. She was at a play. They did a kind of a stage. It was almost like a staged reading, but it was rehearsed, so the actors didn't have scripts or anything, of a play based on a very famous crime writer from the UK. She's had a number of her books adapted into TV shows and things, one of which was called The Take. And Jackie Weaver was in the audience, sitting in the row behind me, and there was a Q&A afterwards. So I always get my hand up in the Q&A and ask the first question. And then I grabbed the author and got my picture taken. And Jackie Weaver came up and went, "Who are you?" Like this. I said, "I'm director Lance Nilsson. Nice to meet you. You were in Animal Kingdom, weren't you?" So we had a bit of a little conversation. She's quite an intimidating person. And I mean, she's
seems fun.
I mean, in the nicest possible way, but because I've seen her do so much stuff, and she's incredible. So where did Summer Coda shoot? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. It's shot in Mildura, which is in Victoria, and it's kind of famous for growing oranges, I think, and a few other things. We have a river here in Victoria that a lot of produce is, and it's sort of you follow the river and then you kind of end up in Mildura. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, very hot. And the director of that, Richie Gray, I actually went to high school with, and he has moved to the States. He's just finished a huge movie, and I so wish I could remember A, what it was called, and B, the big stars that are in it. But he's just rapped on it.
I'll find out while you're talking.
Thank you. Yes, so this is it. And there's Nathan Phillips here, who I did Wolf Creek with. Dan Fredrickson. There's a whole table. Patera Mazembe, Angus Sampson, Alex Dimitriadis, and Rachel. So this, to me, is like a star-studded table full of legends. And we had a ball making this film. Interesting story about this film. The original script it was completely different. And this is a little bit of a funding story. And I'm sure Richie won't mind me sharing this story. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
The original script, Richie was trying to get myself and Jeffrey Rush to play the leads in this film.
Right.
And the context between us was a much, 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 much older man, like a father figure, who had lost his wife and child, and a young girl in her early 20s who had lost her father. And these two unlikely people coming together in grief, sort of, hitchhiking, give a lift to someone. And then she ends up staying there, and they develop this very unusual relationship that they are not sure what it is. because they're in grief. She's grieving for her father, he's grieving for his wife and child, and they find this unlikely match, and it gets a bit awkward because they don't know if it's a romantic connection or it's just kind of weird. It's not. They end up being friends, and she goes back to America and they stay friends. It was a really interesting concept. Jeffrey Rush said no. This was in the early kind of, stages. Roll around a few years later, Richie got funding. I think with this film or another, he won a green light or some, competition and won some money. But anyway, then Alex Dimitrios, artist, is a big star here in Australia, and so is Rachel. And so they ended up getting attached to this film, but because of their age, they're sort of the same age. Like, there's not an age really, like if you see them together as a romantic couple, it doesn't seem odd, or there's nothing about it. But the script fundamentally sort of stayed the same. So it's really interesting for me to watch this film, seeing the difference that, something like that makes, and how, the money people wanted to fund this film with these actors in it, and they didn't mind that, the age of them was sort of the same. But for me personally, I always watch this film and think of the other storyline and the tension that was originally in these characters. So it's just interesting how that happens with money and funding, how things change. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay, well, we'll just make it, Alex and Rachel, and we'll do the movie. But for me, it made a huge difference in the story, and what it's still a lovely, lovely movie. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I missed that element of that sort of why are we attracted to each other? Like, what's going on here? Whereas this movie was the same thing, but it was just more of like a love story. And I still don't think they end up together.
Yeah, I definitely like more nuance in my movies.
Yeah.
It's good.
When you were shooting this film, these kinds of stories often have a scene where the food looks absolutely amazing, and when you're watching it, it makes you feel hungry. There was that movie that Stanley Tucci did that's all set in a restaurant.
Big Night. That's one of
Big
my
Night. Yeah, that's
ever.
the one. And you're watching it and you're like, damn, I got to go to an Italian restaurant when I finish watching this film.
The worst is when you're watching like animes and the cartoon food makes you hungry. You're like, God,
for real.
It's like a drawing.
That doesn't go that far for me. But I'm always, as a director, I'm always interested to know how people shoot these scenes, because sometimes some people will set it up with enough cameras and they'll serve the food for real, and the actors will do the scene all in one go eating, and you got enough cameras, 5 cameras for coverage if you're clever or whatever. Just with this one, because that meal does look pretty good and you all do seem to be eating it. Do you remember how it was shot?
Yeah, from memory, I believe this was real food and we were really eating it. But certainly on Ocean Girl, we're going way back to that first show. There was a lot of food on that show, and we could never eat that. It was always sprayed. And
continuity wise, it's difficult to film. It's like filming a poker tournament. Like, you got to keep in mind that all the chips are the same throughout the conversation.
Yeah, someone's smoking,
Yeah.
Fab. Yeah. Well, I'm going to try and track that down if I can.
Richie's latest film. He married a really good friend of mine, Michelle, and they've been in the States making lots and lots of films, like back to back, for over 10 years. I think.
Well, I checked while you were talking, and I have seen Robert the Bruce, which
that was one of the few.
Yeah, he directed that, and I know all about the story of the funding to get that movie made, and how they tried to make it about 3 times.
Right. You should have Richie on.
Sorry?
I hope.
You should have Richie on here.
Listen, if you can get him on, I'd love to have him on. Absolutely love to have him on, because he also just directed Murder at Yellowstone City. I don't know if that's the movie you were talking about.
No, it's the one after that. It's in the same place.
Yeah, it's a Western.
Yeah, so that one had Gabrielle Byrne in it, I think, but it's the one after that is just wrapped, is like star-studded.
Oh, well, that's not on IMDb yet. So
just saw it on Instagram yesterday.
It must be classified information at this time. But yeah, well, I mean, listen, if he's up for coming on, that'd be great. Please reach out to him. I would absolutely love to have him on.
Clip.
Yeah. Timestamp it.
Okay,
fantastic. And send it to him.
Please, because I do like the look of Yellowstone City, because it's got two of my favorite actors in it. Well, actually, three of my favorite actors. It's got Richard Dreyfuss, Gabriel Byrne, and Thomas Jane. And funny enough, also Lou Temple, who was in a small British indie film that a friend of mine directed called Homeless Ashes. So yeah, I need to make a point of watching this for sure. We'll just give this a quick plug here for you, Richard. So that's Richard's last movie, which is currently available. If you like your westerns, do check that out. And this is a friend that Cassandra went to school with and has worked with also. Yeah. So let's move on. You did an episode of another favorite show of mine called Jack Irish.
Oh yeah.
I do like that show. Now I don't know. I've got two of them because they're kind of like each one's like a sort of feature film, isn't it? Effectively, that I think they're all based on different books, if I remember rightly.
I have no idea. I think.
Well, you just came in, did the job, but did you have scenes with the main man himself?
I did. Yes, I watched him do something interesting.
Do tell.
He's a big star, lovely guy, very grounded. His girlfriend, that's the Red Queen from the Game of Thrones show, she was on set that day because it just started going out. So I was excited about that.
She was on there to keep you in line. Oh, Cassandra Magrath's on, so I better come down.
She was just around, like he was really cute, like showing off the set and stuff. I think they just started going out. They were just
right.
But I was fangirling because I love Game of Thrones so much. But he came onto the set and was like, I don't think this table should be here. And like 4 people just came and moved the table. I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. So yeah, I just thought how cool. And he was right. Like he set it up differently. I just played someone in a nightclub. It got cut down quite quickly. Did
you on a show like that, did you have much rehearsal time, or was it literally just turn up on the day and
no?
Did you get any rehearsal?
I'd auditioned for a different role, and I didn't get that role, and they just offered me this role.
Right.
No, there was no rehearsal. I was just like a club hoe that was trying to seduce him, trying to grab him for a minute.
I like the way you throw that occupation out there.
Yeah, it was cut down to quite a small moment.
But I have heard really nice things about Guy Pearce in terms of he's a very giving actor in his scenes. He's really nice to the cast and crew, and that's all true.
I have a really good friend that actually lived with him for many years when he was famous on Neighbours and stuff, and has spoken, at length about what a lovely person he is. And he, to his credit, we have a show Neighbours, which I'm sure as an English person learns.
Yeah, it was very popular over here in the 80s, and you've also done 5 episodes of that.
Yes, but the Guy Pearce was on that show when he was started on that show. He's a huge star now, and that show got cancelled and then it got rebooted. He has just done some episodes of Neighbours to help the reboot. Like, what a guy! That
says a lot about him.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, so yeah.
Wow.
He's absolutely lovely.
Oh well, shout out to you, Mr. Pearce. I think that speaks volumes about him as a person. When you're on a show like Neighbours, that's got to be it's each show's about half an hour, right? It's quite a quick turnaround in terms of filming, and
so difficult. It is the hardest show, and I have I didn't know what luxury I had working in film and ABC television shows and all this like room to breathe, and they're fast moving things. Neighbours is a beast, and the preparation, for a couple of reasons, for reasons that people may not be aware of. First of all, a lot of the conversation that you have on Neighbours is completely plot driven, and it's not character driven at all. So my character was a plot driven character, and I would just come in and push the plot and tell people, which push the story along. So what that essentially means is whatever someone has just said to me gives me no clue as to what my line is, because I'm just bringing in new plot. So that makes it difficult because it's not about how you're feeling and your character and all that sort of stuff. You're just talking about events, people, places, things, and you have to get it perfect for everything to move along. That's hard enough as it is, and I used their Neighbours have a person who helps you with your lines, and I used him so much. He was like, you know your lines, like you can chill out, stop coming to me. And I was like, no, let's do them again. Because when you're on that set, oh my gosh, it is so fast. And there are multiple cameras, and they just like literally they've got, you know, this house set up here in the studio, then this shot front, and then this house, and they just swing that. Once the actors come on, I think you do one run through to get your marks and stuff like that. Take one, take two, next.
I was expecting to say 2 take turnaround, then you're all on to the next shot.
Not only that, if you do like a little mumble, if you just say your lines like, I need to go over there, and you're like, I need to go, they don't stop and go, oh, let's go back to the start. They pause, you just say that one line again, and then you keep going. So it's just unbelievable. So the preparation you need, you have to be a self-generated performer that, you know, doesn't need anything else. I mean, basically it's almost like acting in front of a green screen. Like you just got to forget what's going on around you and just make sure that you are doing all the things that you need to be doing.
Well, like as a thespian and like theater interest, you know, I'm sure that's like more like up your alley as an actress, right? Like it's fun, right? Having to
theater.
Yeah, kind of like this filming it like that. Well, you know, it's kind of like the theater, you know, when you film it all like in one kind of take, and except you get little, you can back up. You could do little eraser marks on little hiccups and stuff if they happen. But yeah, how fast it is. I assume those soaps, like, I mean, I don't really watch American soaps, let alone Australian soaps, but I assume there's like thousands and thousands of episodes or something.
Yeah, and the writing is so quick. So, you know, you can be on one of those shows and out the door, like just like that, you know, or you might go and do an episode and you're still there 2 years later. Like they're interesting and full on, but the training, you know, is kind of second to none. If you can, like I know Kim Valentine, who's been on Neighbours for years and years and years and years and years, and she was very gifted at that kind of performance, and it's really underrated. Like people, those long time soap actors, like if you've done any acting before, you understand how incredible they are. Making those believable and 3D and warm and funny, and with all these crazy storylines. Like last week they had cancer and then their husband died, and you know, you just keep going. And you know, with normally in a drama, one of those things happen and it's a whole build up and a lead up to that one event.
I can relate with like comic book art, because like comic book art gets like very, you know, it's underappreciated, but it's like the hardest thing to do because you got to draw everything in perspective all the time. You got to tell a sequential story. It's hard. And they don't get enough credit, just like soap actors.
Yeah.
Well, but before we move on to Wolf Creek and talk about your head on a stick and so forth, Wentworth is a phenomenal show, especially in terms of the standard of the acting. And you did a guest character on here for a few episodes. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is effectively the reboot of Prisoner Cell Block H, but it's kind of grittier and obviously with modern filming techniques and so on. What was the difference like working on a show like that compared to, say, Neighbours? Was there rehearsal time? Was it the same kind of turnaround, or tell us about the difference?
No, still a very fast show because, you know, obviously a minute of production on that show would still cost a lot.
Sure.
But no, nothing like Neighbours. There was definitely and Neighbours did have a rehearsal, before I went on to do the filming. There was actually a different rehearsal day. That apparently they don't do it on this reboot, but yeah, with Wentworth, no, definitely time with the director, and you can, you know, when a day you're not filming where you can. I remember a lovely day I had with Pamela Rabe, who I'm just obsessed with, and one of the directors, you know, just really spacing out and, you know, talking about the moments and stuff like that, because this is a character-driven show. It's completely different.
Yeah. Well, Dark Hours saying Wentworth is one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And people did a lot of comparison with, you know, Orange is the New Black, which I also love in the States.
I think it's Orange is the New Black, for me, started off really strong, and then it kind of went into the realm of farce a bit too much. And I felt that undermined the show's power.
I did stop watching it at some point.
Yeah.
And you don't know why. You just, you know.
Yeah, I didn't believe it anymore. It just got a bit silly. And I think if you're going to do a show like that, like Oz is a really good example of a good prison show. You've got to keep it gritty and within reality. You start moving into fast too much, I'd zone out. But
Orange is the New Black is like the exact opposite of Oz.
It is. Yeah.
I loved Crazy Eyes. She just did it for me. She was my favorite character by far.
I've seen that actress on stage, and she is phenomenal. She did a play in London.
Yeah.
And absolutely phenomenal. Did you, with Wentworth, was any of it filmed in a real prison at all? Was there any engagement or consultation? Did you get to speak to any real prisoners as part of research, or was it all just in a set studio, you know?
I have filmed in a real prison, but not on this show.
Right.
No, this was all studio. I think they moved the studio, and yeah, an amazing show and a very special show with brilliant actors. Yeah, there was a lot of good energy around this, and I loved coming in. I wasn't in prison. I played a part of the media, sort of reporting on what was going on in there. But I would have loved to have got on the tracksuit and gone in there. And there was like, these great looks. I really loved, like, there's an amazing actress, Katrina Milosevic, who played my favorite character on this show, Boomer. And Boomer was just like a scary lady, and the actress really let her ego out the door. She's such a stunning woman, and no makeup, and she had crazy hair, and it just worked. It was every time she was on, I just thought it was electric. There was a lot of amazing
I actually think a lot of actresses could benefit from doing roles where they have no makeup on at all.
I agree.
Regular hair, or doing something really outrageous with their hair. I mean, I'd love to see Jennifer Aniston in a movie where she's got a short crew haircut. It would be such a radically different look for her. But I think she's got so many sponsorship deals with hair products that probably won't happen in our lifetime, sadly. But
like Charlize Theron did with Monster.
Yeah.
It's fun to play something different, pretend, like I would love to play like a vicious killer, a bad, just real evil dudes, or I'd love to get killed on screen. Like I would love to have the squibs go off and do the scarecrow dance. That would be amazing. Even if I had no lines in the movie, I'm just like, oh,
I love that.
Neeson or whoever to shoot me to death. Oh, that'd be amazing.
It's scary when they squib on. It is frightening. It's scary because you don't know when it's going to go off, and you
like firecrackers attached to your chest. It's like kind of painful.
Yeah, but what you're nervous about is doing it all at the wrong time, or your reaction being so shit.
You don't want to flinch early or whatever.
You ruin it, and then they're going to redo it. They're going to put a new T-shirt on you and stuff because you look so bad doing it. That's what I get scared.
And the guy who's putting the squibs on you, you could tell he's disappointed because he's like right there in your face, like touching you, and he's just like, I can't believe we're doing this again.
They're always weird. Those people, the weirdest people in the industry are usually the wranglers of stuff.
The
gun wranglers. Run.
That was my father. My father was like, he would dress up like a cowboy and do like recreational black powder shoots in Tombstone, Arizona. Like he was a literal cowboy guy. He's cool.
Oh, dude, you are from Texas.
Yeah, he looked like Santa Claus, but with a cowboy hat and a gun.
So this is the before shot on Wolf Creek. I call this the before photo.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Wolf Creek. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, it was a runaway horror hit for Australia and did very well in Europe. Everybody was talking about it here when it came out. So I went to see it at the cinema. It's loosely based or inspired by, I think would be more accurate, on the backpacker murders of the late 80s and 1990s, which were carried out by Ivan Milat. There's a very good drama series about his arrest, actually, a 5-part drama series, which I watched last year. But this is sort of taking that basis that someone's responsible for these crimes and showing us who. And as I mentioned to you before, one of the girls that went missing in real life actually went to the same college as me and was in the year above me. So I always remember the story. Now, there's a few things I'd like to ask you about in terms of production. And especially coming from my perspective as a director. First of all, was this film shot in order? I get the impression it probably was for the most part. So all the nice stuff, beach parties, all shot first before
as close to as possible and on purpose.
Yeah, because that as a director, that I would have wanted to do that. Right. Did you, in terms of bonding with the actors, the actress who plays your best friend, and then the chap
coming over tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, what was there anything that you guys did? Did you hang out together to get that kind of friendship before shooting the movie?
We already had it. We knew each other. We went to the same drama school. We'd worked together before.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the plays I just mentioned, Things Not to Do After a Breakup, I asked her to do the play, and she came and did it. She's coming to my house tomorrow. Her name's Cassandra Magrath, and
I couldn't tell if you were joking when you said that.
Well, you should have got to your house today. Then she could have come on with you.
You would think of that. I'm so selfish. I didn't even think of that.
You know what? Tell her if she wants to come on. Tell her to watch this interview first, and then she can come on and correct anything that you said. But
she's amazing, very interesting, lady.
I'd love to have her on if she wants to come on the channel. She's got something she wants to promote, and also you should definitely. While I remember, you should definitely come back and talk to us again when your play is ready to go ahead.
I'd love to,
because then we can talk all about your play and we can plug it for you. So, I mean, there's a lot that I really like about this film, but it's not for the faint-hearted. And I remember when I came out of the cinema, I was like, that was a good horror film. I never want to watch that film again in my life. So it was never a film that I purchased, unlike, say, The Fog by John Carpenter, which is just a different kind of horror movie.
Yeah,
which that's one of my favorites of all time, and I've watched it God knows how many times. So I watched this again, thinking distance and time and all of that would make it less traumatic for me. I was completely wrong. It was just as traumatic as I remembered, and still a very good, clever movie. I picked up on a lot of things that I missed the first time around. How long was the shoot for the whole movie?
25 days of filming.
And how much of that did you film in that remote location in Australia? You know, where the crater is and all of that.
We filmed all of it in Adelaide, but the film is set somewhere else. So where we were pretending we were somewhere else. The crater is, I believe. It's not in Adelaide, but there was the DOP just went to do some filming of that, and then when we're looking at the crater, we're actually looking at a car park in Adelaide, and they just sliced it.
Oh.
I wondered about that because I noticed that there was never a shot of you guys standing on the rim, camera behind you, shooting into it. It was a really high shot.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of close up reverse, and I was like, I'm not sure they're really at that location.
Magic of movies, yeah.
Love it.
And I found that location, and I looked at it, and it's like, this is in the middle of nowhere. How did they get there to film that? They can't have gone there. And turns out you didn't.
Apparently, Will and Jody, the DOP and the camera assistant, when they went, they stayed the night in the crater, and apparently somebody like Mick Taylor rocked up in the same kind of car.
Big souped up truck.
Right.
Hey, you're right out here.
Would you like to drink some rainwater from the top of the tap and all that?
You want to hear my funny story?
So that must have been a bit weird for them.
Yeah, they were actually quite scared.
They left right after that, right?
I don't remember they weren't. I remember talking to Will, the DOP, and he said it was unfolding exactly like the film. And he was a big guy.
I would be like, I don't think we should sleep here anymore, guys. I think we should go somewhere else.
That feeling of being in the middle of nowhere, and like if that person's violent, like
it's like being out in open water in the middle of the ocean. There's no law out there. What are you gonna do?
Would you prefer to be in the middle of the ocean at night or in the middle of nowhere with a violent guy?
Yeah,
well, I mean, that's an interesting dichotomy right there. Did the director deliberately keep you guys? I mean, was there a table read for the movie before you went in?
Like with the actors?
Yeah, with the whole cast.
Yes, we did. We kind of just moved through and spoke about the scenes and the relationships. We worked one-on-one with the director and then as a group.
Because
We did all that.
I did wonder if the director would have deliberately kept you apart from the actor who plays Mick.
I think
Until the time that you meet him in the movie, if you know what I mean. John Jarratt, isn't it, the actor?
Yeah. I think there was like a natural sort of distance, It's funny though, you can't stay away from people on a film set, right? I mean, you're in the middle, you're all eating together and you're in the makeup shop together and so, but I think there was an emotional at times, like, John was often, he kind of had one foot in that character the whole time.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't scary. Like you could still go up and talk to him and say good morning. But he, he always just had a little, and we all do that as actors, actors are weird people. When they're on sets, they're often, they're kind of keeping a high energy with one another and they're playing stupid word games and they're punching each other or they're talking too much or they're just, and kind of ADs and people that are good at being around actors understand that that's actually part of their process. They need to stay in that weird place.
Yeah.
And so the three of us would do that without John, if that makes sense. But
because that's kind of what I was getting at, is that you would need, I wouldn't imagine that, after doing some of the scenes you had to shoot with him, hey, let's sit down and have lunch together and then carry on again in the afternoon. If I'd been acting those scenes with him, I'd want to be sitting on a different table so I could maintain the headspace of,
so
I mean,
there wasn't
not to be rude, but
not to the point where it was like, like the crazy stuff that people talk about in Hollywood. It wasn't like that. And he's very funny. I actually still remember one of the jokes. I still laugh about this. But those big microphones that have like, they're really fluffy. When we were doing this scene, we were looking at the engine of the car. We put, oh God, I just saw myself. They were popping up the hood. There's something wrong with the engine. And so they put the boom microphone in the engine because we were all looking over, the top of the car and the camera was looking up at us. And John said, just before the take, he's like, oh, no, what's wrong? You've got a big fluffy microphone in your engine.
That's your problem right there.
It was just so funny. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like,
Well, that's the cool thing about his character is his character is like a nice guy, even though he's like going to kill you. So that's why, he could still kind of be in character and have that kind of like menacing quality to him,
That's right. Well, I'll tell you, I tell you when he popped out of character to give me a hand, when we were doing our scene, speaking of a hand, when I got my fingers cut off, it was really...
that was a question for someone right at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how did they cut your fingers off? Great question. They just did a shot, with a knife and it stops there. And then you cut to the rubber fingers bouncing along the ground.
Right.
It's really that easy. The stabbing was an actual pig. So they got a pig and put a T-shirt on it. And so when he stabs into that spine, it really has the consistency and thickness of like a bit of flesh. But yeah, this scene, so I had a bit of trouble getting into the zone of this scene. I obviously got there in the end and the scene's, really intense as it needed to be. But I wasn't in this place at the very start of the scene. I was having trouble kind of getting in. And John could tell he was like really acting really well. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm dropping the ball here. And he started telling me a story as John Jarratt, not as his character, about when he was younger and someone broke into the house. And he's a big, strong guy. And he went down to confront that person. And then he said this voice in the dark said to him, I've got a knife. And he just went to jelly. And he's like, he was like transferring this story into me. And I really felt it. Like, to have this grown man talk about, how he just went to absolute jelly over this guy in his house. That's a true story they told me. And it really got me into the zone. And then from there, I kind of, so that's what I mean. Like you're in character, but you're still like an actor on set helping your other fellow actor.
Love it.
It's a really clever script because the meat of the movie kicks off. I think I timed it was 42 minutes in, and the build up to that point is very clever because there's a lot of play with, is this going to be a UFO movie? You know, like when everybody's watches stops, and that thing with the watches all stopping is never explained in the film. It's almost like an ethereal kind of menace. You don't really know, and I like the fact that the film also kind of plays with, you know, is Mick some kind of immortal undead character
He's
that's
an
been just
alien.
lost in time forever in that part?
Yeah.
I think he's just got a nice
Well, 'cause
EMP device somewhere in his garage or something.
Yeah, and you know, and I mean, it's a very clever script because his first line when he first appears is, "You scared me. What the bloody hell are you guys doing out here?" That's his first line. So that immediately flips it on its head and makes you guys the threat. And it's really when he's giving the toe and he's been going for hours, and there's that change of tone in the music, and you got that shot of the barbed wire, and then you kind of start thinking, oh dear, I'm not sure this is a good idea. I also liked the attention to detail, and we saw it in a previous picture that I put up, when you're going through, you know, you're finding your way through his kind of lair, and you come across all the other material of other people that he's killed. And, you know, there's a family with kids, and you're watching that thing on the video camera. There's also that shot of the truck, and I picked up on the truck being in that shot this time when I was watching the movie. I saw it.
Diner. Yeah,
But
he was like
all of
stalking
that,
them the whole time. Yeah,
all of that stuff's really clever. Did you? Yeah, when you were introduced to doing that scene and finding those items, did the director run through that with you, or did he keep you off that set and said, look, you're going to go through and you're going to see all this stuff, and I just want you to react naturally? Because my instinct would be to make you discover that for the first time and get it on film. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I don't remember. I don't think so. I remember. It's so funny. People love this bit. I found it the most difficult bit to act because I was just thinking, what the fuck am I doing looking at these videos? Like, why aren't I moving?
Right.
And then Americans love this bit. Like,
yeah, we love standard Americans we love all of our loose ends tied up. We want everything explained to us.
But I like all the detail in that scene. You know, you see different people's IDs, and there's a similar scene to that in a movie called Breakdown. And if you look in the shot and how many people they've robbed in that movie, it's pretty scary, you know.
Well, like the idea of just having a stack of IDs or a bunch of cars, like, I mean, obviously that's enough evidence that he's been doing this for a while, but yeah, we got to have like an actual camera. We need more victims, you know, that's another thing. We need to see happy families and stuff like that.
It's wonderful context, you know, I get that, but it's just, and there's always a bit of, you know, I guess there's always a maybe some leeway in films like this where, you know, it's semi-acceptable that a young woman who's terrified for her life would start to do some investigating, you know, in the middle.
Also, they all have batteries. They all still work, all the cameras, you know.
It sets you up to be the hero as well, which is a great...
That's right, exactly.
It's a great fake expectation.
Yeah, it is. It's a real punch it's a real slap in the face when...
Yeah, I mean, when your character came to her grisly fate, and I won't go into too much detail because those people that haven't seen it, they can discover it for themselves.
No, I think this
20-year-old movie.
No, if you haven't seen it,
listen, you'd be surprised. I teach kids drama, and you know, the other day, 20 students in the room. How many of you have seen Die Hard? And no one put their hand up.
I haven't seen Die Hard.
Oh, well, watch it this Christmas. Watch it this Christmas.
Watch it this Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. There's a
Christmas movie, though, you know.
There's a Christmas tree in it.
I think with the disclaimer, like, you know, talk about it, you know, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, okay. So, I mean, you get this knife through your back, and then, you know, then he does that horrible speech about basically cutting your spine, and it's pretty horrible.
But that's the last we see you in the movie, right? Like, alive and paralyzed.
And I felt like, and this is just me writing myself into the sequel, But I felt like the correct opening for the second one was him dancing around with my paralyzed body in that.
I kind of was surprised that they didn't do that in the second film, actually.
Yeah. He should have thrown me against the wall, and then it should have cut to Wolf
I
Creek
love
too.
how
That was
twisted
just
you are,
me
Cassandra.
trying to
It's great.
get myself in
I
there.
love it.
But the tone was so different because Wolf Creek 1 is an art house film. It's like it was at Sundance. Wolf Creek 2 is a different beast. It's different humor. It's different everything.
Yeah.
And I went to SAE briefly to study film production, which is like a film school here in Victoria. And there was I was like a lot older than there was like, 19, 20-year-olds everywhere studying music and film. And they loved Wolf Creek 2. They found Wolf Creek 1 like, nah, yawn, yawn, yawn. They loved. So, it was interesting to see that too. It evolved.
Yeah.
The franchise just was nothing, like I've actually found Wolf Creek 2 to be a bit funny, and I quite liked a couple of the lines, and I really love Ryan Core and stuff. So I got a lot out of it. There was some funny line about it, cutting off a dick or something.
Had you worked with Nathan Phillips before?
Sorry?
Had you worked with Nathan Phillips before Wolf Creek?
I'd never met him. I met him, I think, in Adelaide, when I got there. So, and we're still friends to this day. I catch up with him when I can. I go past where he lives. He lives in a different state to me.
Right.
Loved working with him. I really loved working with him. And he's actually the only actor that I felt really comfortable doing a kissing scene with, because we had a kiss, and I don't like. It's horrible when you get like forced to kiss someone. It's weird. I don't know. Acting's weird. It's like, and it's never someone you would pick, right? Like it's like the character's like, version of something. So, and kissing so intimate. You can really smell someone's face, and like it's a whole thing. And so, I never enjoy the experience. Like, but with Nathan, it was really different because I was like talking to him, and I was like, we need to talk about the kiss, like what kind of kiss we're going to do. Because there was no intimacy. I've never worked with an intimacy coach, but I haven't really I've never done a sex scene. Right. But I said, let's discuss this kiss, because I didn't want any surprises. And Nathan's like, he goes, mate, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. Like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I'm just going to. And the way he sort of said it, I was like, you really reset my mind. I was like, yeah. And the thing with Nathan, he was so into his own performance that he didn't really care about kissing me. And I found that really easy to work with. And we ended up having the most amazing screen kiss, because basically we said we're not discussing it to me, because I want to orchestrate it. And he really taught me a lesson. And I was like, that's good advice.
It's really playful. And I understand the need for intimacy coordinators. And I get that the industry has changed and that. But I can also see that could dilute the process and make sort of an organic performance quite difficult for some people, I think. Because if you start overthinking it, then I've worked with people that get trapped in that circle. They start overthinking a scene, and I can see that they're overthinking it, and it's like, just let it go, just
I think you've got a really good argument there, and we, Nathan and I created that kiss. It was not directed. It was not. We did that, and we had the space to do that. And I'm writing at the moment. I have quite a intense sex scene, and it's all part of the story, and it's important and stuff. But I've already thought in my head, I don't want an intimacy coach. I want to be the intimacy coach of this scene.
Oh, there it is.
I hate to have someone else coming in telling me, well, you can't do that. I'm like, well, I will have that conversation with the actors myself. But I totally also get that it's a different planet now, and
But I think it's probably a discussion to be had with your cast and your director, and then bring one in if everyone feels they want one, if they want that, if somebody wants that for their I guess mental health or whatever, but
a lot of Wolf Creek was improvised, right? Loosely. Or a lot of Wolf Creek the movie was kind of improvised, right? Or kind of like loose script kind of stuff. Yeah,
loose is a good word. Yeah. So the structure, Greg was a writer director, and one of the benefits of working with someone who's written the story, they know that story inside out, and they know what's important, and they know the character arcs, and they know the answer to everything. So It was one of those films that we could, because it was character, driven, and for you to believe that, be upset that this young woman is dying on the floor, you have to spend that hour with them and stuff. So within that, obviously, is room for little mateships and stuff like that. So Greg was very encouraging of us to, oh, don't worry, we'll say this then instead, or find, as long as we were still, moving along with the structure that he had written, and we still had the dynamics and everything, he didn't mind if we sort of just added this and made it our own, because it, it really does help. It just, Kirsty put so many things in that, were just hers that she did. And there was a scene where I'm like, we need more cars or something like that. She basically rewrote that scene. She sat down. She's like, I think you should say this, and then I should say this, and then she took it to Greg. He's like, yeah, that's fine. We rolled a camera on it. So that's wonderful when you're in that place. Yeah.
Yeah. So like as an actor, like that's always fun to do. Or do you prefer like more like, like you got a really solid script and you just kind of meticulously like memorize it and learn the whole script? And
it depends on the text. If you're doing, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Right.
No.
Right.
Don't even throw those. But it just depends. It depends on the style. It depends on, sometimes like.
But as far as like a personal preference, like obviously, which one's better? Like, which one do you prefer better?
I pretty much stay to the lines that I'm given.
Cool.
I just feel safe that way. Like, but on this, I did, I remember kind of, there's bones everywhere, and I made that up.
I think certainly with the pre kind of mix stuff, there was a lot of room to maneuver to just let's see these three characters relax in their own company.
Yeah.
Like the playful stuff you do with the guitar, and there's that line, he's just made a really bad song, you're singing in the car. I think all that stuff works really well. I could tell there was a bit of improv there, but I think it was good.
Another cool thing that's kind of extraterrestrial or superstitious or supernatural is how you guys kind of ended like a huge dry spell in this area where it like
glad you brought that up.
It had rained in years, and that's why it looks so cool when he comes up. He kind of looks like a UFO because the windshield's all wet, and there's some great like atmospheric shots. But how long had it not rained?
Like years,
like a decade or something.
Yeah. So you were talking about the beer pit, the watches stopping. So like there's kind of like, how lands, and I'm sure it's the same in America, maybe not England, but there are just lands that have their own thing going on,
Right.
And Australia has pockets like that for sure. And this place where we filmed, it was picked because the director wanted that, that red dust that comes up underneath.
Yeah.
That it's very hard to find. I did another film like that, and I had to drive to Perth and drive 4 hours out of Perth just to try and get that red dust. And so we went to that small town for that reason. Not only did it rain, it hadn't rained for like 10 years or something. It was flooding. And the last time it rained, a film crew tried to film there.
Whoa!
Yes. So it's almost like the land was like, no, we don't
film here, please.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I know. But the locals, it was flooding. Like it was, all our cars got bogged. So we were supposed to go somewhere to film something, and we ended up filming, I don't even remember, maybe looking at the crater and looking at the car park, and we didn't even have the first AD. They were all still, in the car, bogged, and the DOP and the director went, let's just film it here, and we just got out.
Here's some good reverse psychology. Like you have to film somewhere and it needs to be raining, and you're like, I've got an idea. We're going to go film in the driest part of Australia. And they're like, are you nuts? And it's like, trust me. There's a jinx going on there.
Yeah. And so all of that stuff, we were supposed to be this hot sun, and you can imagine, right? But I love that it's raining and a grey,
I'm only happy when it rains.
Couple of lines.
Somebody in the chat here, Raisin Domain, said, holy shit, I watched Wolf Creek for the first time 3 days ago. I searched Wolf Creek on YouTube and this stream shows up. Well,
you should switch me and Cassandra's places, so that way if you bring up chats, you'll cover.
I'm not sure I can do that.
Yeah, you can. You can just literally click her on the StreamYard and drag her. Like,
can I?
StreamYard. Yep. Drag her up.
Oh, dude, let me try. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now we're covering your face.
I'm at the bottom.
No, bring me to the bottom. Put me in the bottom. There you go.
There we go. It's like a Brady Bunch kind of situation. Dude, thanks for that. That's why you're here. Help me with those technicals.
Cool, man.
I want to know where you were when you saw this for the first time with a real audience who hadn't seen it before, not a cast and crew screening, and
Great
what the
question.
reaction was like, and how, you know, how that was for you as well. Seeing it
Yeah.
all.
Great question. It was in the city. We have right opposite our kind of Flinders Street, our main train station, is a massive sort of, you know, centre where you can watch films. It was in there. So it was relatively newly built, and I wasn't aware of this at the time, but the sound was very different in that particular cinema than the cinemas that I grew up in. It was like, I don't know, aerodynamic or something special. So
Right.
I watched it in there with a proper audience for the first time, but because of the sound, it sounded to me like no one was making any noise at all, and all so I interpreted that as nobody found the film scary at all. So it just looked to me like people were just still in their chairs just watching it, and then
Right.
the film ended, and then everybody came out, no one was talking, and I interpreted that as that's because it's shit, and they don't want to say that it's shit, and they're just like walking out going, oh, okay. And then we went out into the foyer, and there was just like an eruption of noise, and just people were grabbing each other's arms going, oh my God, rah, 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 and recounting the movie. And I was sort of looking across, and I was going, oh, they really, really, because I was walking out embarrassed. I was like, oh, this film hasn't really landed. Because there's so much non-horror stuff at the start too, and then there's like a little bit at the end, so it's like, maybe it's not enough. And but I had
I think the balance is
Yeah.
is really good. I mean, maybe for a younger person, I don't know, but I think that's what makes the film good. The fact that
Yeah.
you're invested in these three people,
Yeah.
and you want them to survive. Especially the twist with your friend at the end, and you know, one of the most shocking moments for me was when that bullet
Yeah.
comes through the pot of coffee on the top of the roof of the car. So
Love that
clever.
too, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, and she's like, screw you, and you think she's got away, and oh man.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
like those good Stephen King stories, or all those good horror stories where you meet normal people with their normal issues and their normal problems, and then like a giant rabid dog or a crazy Australian shows up, and all that stuff is like not important anymore. But also, like, yeah, when the movie starts and everyone's having a good time at the beginning of the movie, that's never a good sign. It's usually things are gonna get bad. Everyone's having a good time living their life, being young.
Yeah,
And,
and I feel like a lot of mistakes that people make in cinema is they make them too happy at the start of, you know, that sickly,
Oh, right.
like,
Yeah.
goodbye, darling, I love you. It's like, oh, I love how European films don't do that, especially French films. You know, I
Oh,
saw
yeah.
this amazing French film once, I can't remember the
Dude,
name.
Martyrs. That's like another movie
Oh,
that came out around this time. Like, there's so many good movies that came out around this time, and especially horror
so true.
movies. And even the ones that were like straight to DVD were still good. In fact, like, you know, there's this one and Wrong Turn and Dead End, and
yeah, I
you
remember
know,
those.
they're all great. They're all decent.
High
And
Tension. Have you seen High Tension?
yeah, I love
Yeah.
High Tension. Thank you. Yeah, all those friends. Yeah, those dude. Martyrs was one of those movies. Like from the very beginning. Like, yeah, that is. I mean, it's kind of what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's like 30 seconds of like breakfast kids, and then it's off the rails. But
I hate to say it, America is the worst offender there, and Americans are brilliant at making movies. Don't get me wrong, but there's just it's always just like 3 notches too much, and it's like if you brought it down, if you made the couple even having a fight in the morning about something, and then he gets killed in a car accident, it would be so much more emotional.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because then the last time they spent together was they had a row instead of being nice to each other, and you
Make
hear
it like the
that.
most boring morning they've ever had in their life. That's how, you know.
And I remember watching Wolf Creek, and one of the things I took away from it as I was like in high school maybe, or middle school. I was probably a senior in high school, and like, it was like one of those times where it's like that movie and Collateral and a couple of these other movies that were like, oh, it's like these like digital cameras, you know, filming like on location with like skeleton crews. It's like becoming easier to make movies, you know, and like the idea that it's a lot of handheld camera. And it just looks great. It's cool. And it's like, you know, you get the job done on a decent budget, and horror has always just been one of those, you know, money makers. You know, you just have a good slasher film. You got a good villain. You got to get some good victims and interesting setting. And there you go.
I know you've done a few similar roles to the role.
Audiences need to be, movie makers need to take more assume that their audiences are smarter. Right? That's something that
I
dumbing
agree.
down
Yeah,
movies.
It's getting worse. So
Oh, it's definitely bad now.
Yeah, we might have to wait a bit until that changes. Did you get typecast a little bit? Do you think after doing this part? Because I know you have appeared in quite a few films where you're playing women in trouble in gruesome circumstances. Have rucksack will travel kind of roles.
no, I don't think so. I think I feel like I've balanced out the horror with enough comedy, and I feel like I am an actor that is really not quite pigeonholed into anything in particular. Not to say that I don't love, this genre. And this film in particular, I mean, this is definitely, the biggest, most successful thing that I've been a part of. And there isn't really
it's a milestone in the horror genre, this movie, for sure.
Yeah, and it was a global thing. So, the work that I've done as an actress is very local, and this is the only global thing, that people in America, all sorts of people from around the world know this film, and people know it in America, and that's a huge thing. That's very hard for any Australian film to kind of be even recognizable or known over there. So the horror community really. They're a funny bunch, like people who like love horror films, like to me are like sort of strange people. Like I don't quite get them. They're not really my tribe. And they seem to know more about me than I know about me, like
See, I love
that of itself
films.
could be worrying sometimes.
Yeah, I love horror films, but I also love, family films and all kinds of movies. I mean, I
I'm
don't get
talking
those.
about people there's two types of people that love horror films. There's like the nerdy guy that's got like the t-shirt on from an 80s horror, unique film or whatever. There's that guy. And then there's like people who are like unwell. But there isn't really anyone in the middle, it's just those two groups, like, and they love, they know every horror film. So
a lot of people can't handle horror. Like I'm sure when you get your fingers cut off, I heard there were like walkouts around that part, and some people can't handle it. It's not for everyone.
That's true. And I think, and I know that the filmmakers were quite proud at some of that, but I have a different take on that. I think that a lot of that is not that the film is so good, because for every person that walks out, there's someone that sees Wolf Creek and goes, nah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's more that you don't know what has happened in somebody's life, and what triggers them. And, like
true.
There are certain things in movies that really get to me as well. Like that thing I was talking about in Changeling, where, you got to see, some things I don't know. So I think it's more that. I don't think it's,
personal
because
problems. Yeah, I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend, a lovely girl, but I remember I saw the first. It's funny. I saw the first Doctor Strange with her in theaters, and the car crash scene in a Marvel movie. She had to like cover her eyes, and she had a friend who had died in a car crash. But I was like, oh man, if you can't handle a car crash in a movie, this is gonna not work. Because I like,
exactly, you just proved the point exactly. You just don't know, like we've all got like, emotional relationships with stuff. And like, we mentioned the war before, like, which I've had to, at the start, like I've had to ban, all sharing on Instagram and watching videos, because I spent the first 6 days, and I saw things that I just couldn't unsee. And, you just, so, and watching a movie now that has similar things that I saw there, I would turn it off at this point.
But that's something I appreciate from you as an actor, is like the willingness to take those more, crazy roles, doing crazy subject matter and stuff. It's nothing's off the table kind of thing, or less is off the table, I should say.
This is the chap who watched the movie for the first time 3 days ago. So there are still people that still haven't seen it. Couldn't sleep, so I watched this movie at 2 a.m. When I finished watching the movie, I was sure, like, I'm definitely not sleeping tonight. By the way, I miss these types of horror movies. Yeah, I mean, Wolf Creek probably isn't a movie to watch if you can't sleep, because you may not sleep for some time.
Do you know what's scaring me now? Like, and this changes. Like, I used to be really afraid of the supernatural in horror movies. So, like, the ghosts. Like, I can't watch films like, The Ring and, oh, God, But I just judged a short horror film festival called A Night of Horror. It's an international film festival in Australia, and I judge the short film aspect. And often when I've judged things, I'm always a judge alone. The other judges didn't agree with what they thought was the scariest film. But I realized I had a theme that there was the supernatural stuff just wasn't scaring me anymore. And what was scaring me was anything that was real, that actually was, you know, like Wolf Creek, like
Killers.
So it really depends. Like some people love that cortisol rush, or what, you know, they find it really fun. And I've been in a cinema watching Hostel in France with Eli Roth, and he was there, and I didn't want to be there because I was like, this film's going to be way too scary for me, and it is. But I felt for the first time in my life why people watch horror films and why it's fun, because it was like being on a roller coaster.
Right.
They were so loud, and they were like cheering when people died, and I was like, oh my God, like this is fun for people. Like what a weird thing to find fun. But and then they go and they leave and they go back to their normal life and they go to sleep and they turn the light off and they're fine. Like
horror movies are definitely a different beast, you know.
We have a horror film festival here called Fright Fest. I don't know if you've heard of that. I think it's been going for about 25 years now, and I'm pretty sure Wolf Creek was in it when it and I can't remember if that's where I saw it. I just know I saw it. It may well have been on the big screen, but I'm a bit like when it comes to horror films, I'm a bit like the way I like my wine. You know, I wine has got to be a cork, not a screw top. And I like my horror films with, you know, a really strong story and a lot of body and grounded in reality, so that I find them scary. But then I also think like the film The Mist, which goes into the realms of science fiction, is also a really good horror film. And the reason that horror film's good is they take the traditional story, and if you watch it again, you'll notice that every decision that the major hero makes in the film is wrong. Every decision he makes and tries to lead the group to safety causes either somebody else to get killed, or it has a bad consequence. And that's right the way through from start to finish. Whereas, you know, other people that leave the store early or things like that, they turn out to survive. So that was one of the more recent horror films that for me is up there with things like Salem's Lot, the original Salem's Lot I'm talking about.
Well, we talked about The Thing, and, you know, people talk about good horror movies all the time, but then you got weirdos like me who like bad horror movies too. Like I just got done doing Schlocktober on my YouTube channel, and I'm like doing Mystery Science Theater of like these terrible public domain horror movies. And it's like I watched like 35 of these, you know, older public domain horror movies, and man, some of them were bad. Yeah, but I still have fun. You know, it's like you learn a lot watching bad movies too. You know.
So Sandra, tell us about this haircut.
Blonde.
Speaking of horror films, so this is me when I went through my peroxide blonde era. I've had this was a Cannes Brothers film called Scare Campaign.
Yeah.
Great guys. I love doing this movie. I actually think this is a very, very underrated horror film. Like it's actually, I think this film is really fantastic. But I literally just went into the hairdressers once, and I've had the same hairdresser for like 20 years. And I said, you can just do whatever you want. And he's like, well, I want to give you a peroxide blonde bob. And I went, okay. And then I was going to speak to these guys about being in the film, and I went and chatted to them in the office. And they hadn't seen this hair. And I said, I can dye my hair brown again if you want. And they were like, no, leave it. We like it. So I got to have it in a movie, which was I loved. I actually love Me Blonde. I think it was really cool. Not a lot of people liked it. And I said later on, I think I want to go back blonde again. And I think every single one of my friends said, don't do that. But it's really fun. You know, the grass is always greener, right? So, but yeah, it's definitely my real hair. And I burnt my scalp greatly doing it because I didn't want to do it in stages. I wanted to do it in one day. So I had a lot of scabs, but it was worth it.
Anybody who wants to check out Scare Campaign, here's the IMDb look. Well, we're coming up to the 90-minute mark. So before we start to round up, you said you're working on a play which you're writing at the moment. You're gonna direct. Please do come back and talk to us about that when it's nearer the time. What else have you got coming up in the near future? What have you been up for? You know, maybe what are the boxes that you want to tick as an actress? Perhaps because a lot of indie film directors watch these interviews on my channel, so you never know.
Well, let them know my passport is valid. I am available. I am ready to work. I got my Masters of Screenwriting during COVID. So during the lockdown, I went to study. And so I've been writing my play and a screenplay version of the same story. So
so you've done a film script for that play as well.
The same story, yeah. So
can you give us the basic pitch? Can you give us the basic pitch for that?
No, I'm so bad at pitching. It's all I'll say is a period piece, and it's a four-hander. That's all.
Okay, four-hander period.
I went to school to learn how to pitch, and I just don't know how to do it. That's
the elevator pitch.
So I didn't learn that bit very well.
Yeah.
But my plan is to get to direct the play so that I can really get my hands in the clay with the characters and the story and the arcs, and make sure that I'm across everything. And then go back. I've already written a draft of the feature film, and then kind of keep redrafting the feature film, because I feel like I want to direct the feature film as well, but I don't want to make a mistake with the feature film that I feel like could be ironed out putting it on as a play. Only given the nature of it's such a nuanced. The story happens over like a 48-hour period. It's a boiling frog situation where every beat, if one beat is missed, the payoff at the end won't work. So I just want to I feel like the play is like a buffer. I also think it's a great play because it's very, conversational and relationship driven. So, and there's only 4 people. So I think, to produce the play is kind of appealing. So yeah, I'm just going to throw myself working on my own stuff, which obviously you kind of, everyone's branching out now to stay in the industry, because if you're not always acting, you've
got to be proactive. You've got to be proactive.
I also do voiceovers, so record, which a lot of actors do as well. I work in casting at times as well, directing either people's auditions, or I'm a reader, so people come in and read. That's how I got the job on Wentworth. I was the reader, so all the girls most of the characters that were auditioning, when the show started, I was their reader in the room.
Yeah, I do that for people. I've got people booked on Law and Order and all kinds of shows. Yeah, because I'm an acting coach, so I not only do they read the scene with me, but I get them to. I look at it as a writer and go, I know what they want from this. I'm going to get you this job, and so I can kind of come at it with two barrels, so to speak. Do you have any roles that you've shot recently that we won't have seen yet? Stuff coming out?
Everything's out. So the last thing I think I did was a commercial for a nasal spray.
I won't.
So I'm ready. I'm ready for the next role. We've had COVID and a strike, and things have slowed down in the industry a bit here. We still have stuff cranking. So there's been some almost jobs, but nothing that is actually.
I'm sure my good buddy Matthew Holmes will be keeping you in mind for stuff in the near future. Before we wrap up, can I ask you for your opinion, if you've seen it, of one of the best shows I think to ever come out of Australian television? Tremendously talented team and cast. We're going to be doing a special stream about it, I think next week. I think we're doing it next Sunday, and that's Mr. In Between. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen the series, but I've seen the movie, and the movie is amazing.
Yeah, the original pilot. You've got to watch the series. So it's every bit as good as the original.
Yeah, The Magician. That's what the film.
Yeah, The Magician. That's right. It started off as a kind of low budget indie film. I think it's about a 45-minute movie. It's not like a 2-hour.
I don't know. It's more. It's Do you know Nash Edgerton? So I sat next to him and watched The Magician, and he was telling me the story of he basically kind of came on board and helped finish that movie, and looked at all the footage and started helping edit it. He just saw this like gold sitting there, It is just one of the funny. I know that Mr. In Between would be awesome because The Magician is just one of the greatest films. It's so
Scott Ryan's amazing.
It's hilarious.
And
hilarious.
I mean,
and very special.
Well, when you've got some downtime, you can watch it on the Disney Channel, which I was quite surprised because it's not what you would call a typical Disney show. I guess they just got the distribution rights, and it was a while before it came out. Somebody told me about it, and I was able to get hold of it. And importing the Blu-rays for this from Australia cost me an absolute fortune, but it's an amazing show.
I have no doubt. Those two guys.
Me and Mother watched the first 3 episodes. She liked it a lot.
Is there one role in your career, you know, like most men will go, one day I'm going to play Hamlet on stage. Is there one sort of role or character that you've it's an itch you've always wanted to scratch that you haven't done yet? I mean, could be
Star
like
Trek.
a warrior woman.
Star Trek.
Which particular era or
I don't care.
anything?
I don't care.
Okay.
Just put me in a fleet. Would you rather be in Starfleet or one of the aliens?
No, I think I want to be like half normal, you know. I don't want to like sit in the makeup chair for 1,000,000 hours in the morning.
Put some leopard dots on my forehead and put me in a Starfleet uniform and, you know, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of Captain Catherine Janeway sort of vibe.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, be a doctor on the ship or what, I don't know, like a military expert. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I love sci-fi, very conversational. I love that. It's like a Shakespeare play every episode. You know,
What's your
TNG was my jam.
What's your favorite sci-fi TV series or movie, just out of interest, if you're a sci-fi fan?
There's one that just is. I'm gonna think of it as soon as I get off, and I'm gonna be so annoyed that I haven't thought of it.
Well, I'll go while you're struggling to think
or
of
any
it.
good Star Trek episodes you could think of.
Black Mirror. I love Black Mirror.
Black Mirror's great.
Yeah.
So this is in my other room right now.
Oh.
And this is a Star Trek board game that I created. It's literally in the other room right now.
Yeah.
And each player controls the ship, and there's a storyline. You might have to find a computer disk on a space station or something before the Klingons get hold of it. Those charts in the background with the chits on, those are the charts for the players when the ships get damaged, and the chits are how much power you have to operate the weapons and move your vessel. And there you go. So we sometimes we run those games with actors, and the actors like do the briefing for the players, you know, like they're playing the role. It's a ton of fun. So you know, if you don't get cast in Star Trek, but you come through London, you can do a Star Trek game with us. There you go.
Play some Star Trek board games.
A close second to being. Listen, Cassandra, thanks so much for coming on the Outcast Creative channel. We are all about not only sharing the stories of people that have worked hard and have a wealth of experience in the creative industry, which you do, but also about promoting the work of creatives. So please don't be afraid to call on us if ever you want to promote your play or whatever. And the channel is growing. Hopefully we'll get bigger all the time. But yeah, it's been fantastic having you on.
You've been very entertaining and fun and lovely and just all around. Great guest.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I really loved the live pop-ups of like people talking. That made it so great. Yeah. It's a kind of like a shame you can't like put them on and, you know.
Well, that's happened. Yeah. I was doing a live stream
Better Off Dead the other day.
Do you remember a movie called Better Off Dead with John Cusack that came out in the 1980s where he gets dumped by his girlfriend? You like that film? So one of the extras that was on the movie popped up in the chat, and within 10 minutes we had him on the stream. I just said, contact me on Facebook. Here's the link. Boom, he came on and he told us some stories. That's the second time that's happened, because I was doing I don't know if you remember the hip hop film called Beat Street that came out in the 80s about body popping and break dancing and everything. Well, I had one of the actors that was in that. And then do you remember the woman that sung the song Band of Gold that was #1 in the 60s? Anyway, she suddenly came on. Somebody sent her the link and she came on out of nowhere, and we were talking about her going to parties at Studio 54, and that's a mad stream. It's in the industry interviews if you watch it, or it might be no, it's an episode of Chew the Fat where we talk about Beat Street at length. It's a 2-hour stream, and my guest accidentally, instead of giving people the YouTube link, she gave out the invite link to all her friends.
Link.
So all these random people were like popping up. It was
fun.
I managed it quite well, amazingly.
Well, that is why I like StreamYard. Like when I do the Wii Watches, I record them in Discord and OBS, and you need software on your computer. But like StreamYard, it's like on a phone or a computer. You just click the link, pop in, allow your mic, you're on. It's easy. So we get all kinds of guests.
Oh, so someone just said then, great interview. Or,
I like
that.
That's Keith, who's one of our regulars. You can come on with your cast from the show, and when you're getting ready to do your play, you can come on. You bring the actors on. We can do a kind of like a round table sort of thing. So
100%. Let's do it. And I don't think I swore. I think I might have said shit a couple of times. But I think I was pretty good.
Well, you just said it one more time then. Well, just to remind people, coming up next tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. I've got stunt coordinator, second unit director Dan Stiles coming in. He did season 4 of Vikings, all the rides of the Foot Soldier movies, and a whole heap of other stuff. He's just done the new Boudica film. Then we've got actor, director, producer Sean Cronin coming in to talk about Our Kid, which is a whole another feature film with my friend Ricky Tomlinson in, which is set predominantly in Liverpool. That's just debuted at the Rain Dance Film Festival, had a raucous reception there. And then on Saturday, I am doing a deep dive into season 6 of The Crown under the Best of British, because we like talking about British dramas on this channel occasionally. I'll be talking all about that, plus probably a couple of random gaming streams in between all the rest of it. So it just remains for me to say thanks to everybody in the chat for your comments and a couple of super chats, which was really nice. Thanks for Stupenzo coming on and co-hosting with me. And last but by no means least, the talented and gorgeous Cassandra Magrath, the rose between the two thorns, as it were, on the screen.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
It's been really great. And we are now